Welcome back to Building Heavenly Neighbors. In the last episode, I shared where this journey really began and the heart behind why Heavenly Neighbors Home Care even exists. But what I didn't fully prepare you for was this. Once I made the decision to actually do this, everything got real fast. Because it's one thing to carry a vision in your mind and in your heart, it's something completely different when you realize that vision now has to survive paperwork, regulations, deadlines, and requirements that you can't ignore or shortcut. And I remember thinking, okay, I said I was going to do this. Now, what does that actually require? That question is what this episode is about. Because between the moment I decided to move forward and the moment Heavenly Neighbors became a licensed agency, I learned very quickly that there is a whole world most people never see. So today I'm going to walk you through what it actually took for me to get Heavenly Neighbors licensed in Kansas. Before we start, I do want to say that this is my experience, not legal or licensing advice. Requirements can change and they're different from state to state. So if you're starting your own agency, make sure you're checking the current requirements for your state. First, I had to create the business. Before Heavenly Neighbors could become a licensed home care agency, Heavenly Neighbors had to become an actual business. That meant taking care of the business foundation. So I formed Heavenly Neighbors Home Care LLC. I got my EIN. I started putting the financial and administrative pieces in place. And this was one of those moments when the dream started feeling a little more real. There's something about seeing the name of your business on official paperwork that makes you stop for a second and think, okay, I'm really doing this. But here's something that I had to understand. Having an LLC did not make me a licensed home care agency. Having an EIN did not make me a licensed home care agency. Having a business name, a logo, or vision did not mean I could start sending caregivers into people's homes. There was another layer to this business. Then came the research. I had to understand exactly what Kansas required for the type of home care agency I wanted to operate. And if you're following this series because you're considering starting an agency of your own, this is one lesson I really want you to hear. Go to the source. Don't build your business entirely from what someone said in a Facebook group. Don't assume that because another agency did something a certain way, that's what your state requires. Read the regulations. Visit your state's official websites. Ask questions when you don't understand something. And document what you learn. Because there's a big difference between starting a regular business and starting a regulated business. You're talking about entering people's homes. You're talking about caring for individuals who may be vulnerable. You're asking families to trust your company and the people you hire with someone that they love. That's a tremendous responsibility. And once I started looking at the licensing requirements through that lens, some of the paperwork stopped feeling just like paperwork. I started understanding the why behind it. Then came the policies and procedures. And this was a big one. I needed policies and procedures that explain how Heavenly Neighbors would actually operate. Because the task was so big and because I'm still working my 9 to 5, I hired a consultant to do that part for me. At first, policies can feel like one more stack of documents you need because somebody says you need them. But the deeper I got into this process, the more I realized your policies are basically the operating instructions for your agency. So how are client rights protected? How do we protect confidential information? What happens during an emergency? What happens if there's an incident? What happens if someone suspects abuse, neglect, or exploitation? How are personal care specialists trained? What are they allowed to do? And what are they not allowed to do? How is care documented? How are complaints handled? What happens when something doesn't go according to plan? Those questions forced me to move from thinking I want to own a home care agency to thinking I am responsible for operating a home care agency. There's a big difference. Those are very different mindsets. I didn't want policies sitting in a binder somewhere that I didn't understand. I wanted to build Heavenly Neighbors so that our policies actually reflected how we intended to operate. That became part of what I now think of as the Heavenly Neighbors standard. If we're going to do something, we're going to understand why we're doing it. Then came the licensing application. Whew. Once I had the pieces together, it was time to work through the actual licensing application and supporting documentation. This is where the consultant was beneficial because organization became incredibly important. Applications, documents, policies, required information. Make sure things were complete. They were double checking and triple checking everything to make sure it was good. Listen, whew. But we had to get it right, so I didn't mind. And eventually I reached that moment where there was nothing left to tweak, nothing left to organize, nothing left to check. Just submit it. So I did. And then came the part nobody likes, the waiting. Whew, impatient I am. So if you're an entrepreneur, you probably already know that waiting is not necessarily our greatest strength. When you've spent weeks or months working towards something, you want the answer now. I would love to tell you I submitted everything and then peacefully went about my life without thinking about it. That would not be true. So I wondered, I checked, I thought about what might have been forgotten. I wondered whether someone was going to contact me and tell me I needed something else. But I eventually realized I couldn't control how quickly the licensing process moved. That's out of my hands. What I could control was what I did while I waited. So I kept building. I kept learning. I kept organizing. And I started asking myself a question that would shape a lot of what came next. If my license came tomorrow, would I actually be ready? Not excited, not motivated, ready. Could I actually operate the agency? Could I hire someone properly? Could I onboard them? Could I train them? Could I schedule care? Could I document services? Could I bill a client? Could I handle payroll? Could I respond appropriately if something went wrong? That's when I started realizing that getting licensed was only one part of building Heavenly Neighbors. And then it happened. Heavenly Neighbors Home Care became a licensed Kansas home care agency. And that moment meant so much to me because I knew what had gone into getting there. A year and a half. The research, the paperwork, the questions, the learning, the late nights, the uncertainty, the prayers, the moments when I wondered whether I was doing everything correctly. And suddenly, I had something tangible that said Heavenly Neighbors Home Care is real. I was proud. I was grateful. And yes, I celebrated. But it's okay. But after the excitement settled down, I realized something pretty quickly. Getting licensed wasn't the finish line. Actually, it was the starting line because now I had a licensed agency, but I still needed systems. I need technology. I needed payroll. I needed employee files. I needed onboarding documents. I needed personal care specialists. I needed training. I needed orientation. And ultimately, I needed clients. I had gotten permission to operate. Now, I had to build an agency that was actually prepared to operate with excellence. And that's exactly where we're going next. In the next episode of Building Heavenly Neighbors, I'm going to take you behind the scenes of what I started putting in place before serving my first client. No, I still don't have any clients, but I want to be ready when that time comes. We're going to talk about the business infrastructure, the systems, the technology, the administrative setup, the things nobody sees when they look at a home care agency from the outside, but the things that can make the difference between simply having a business and actually being prepared to run one. Because one of the biggest lessons I've learned through this whole process is getting licensed allows you to open the door, but building the right foundation determines what happens after people walk through it. So thank you for joining me for another chapter of Building with Heavenly Neighbors. If you're building something of your own, I hope you'll keep following this journey, because I'm going to keep showing you the parts that people don't always talk about. The wins, the work, the lessons, and yes, probably a few mistakes. So remember, excellence isn't something that we achieve once. It's something that we choose every day. And until next time, keep making a difference one neighbor at a time. I'll see you in the next episode.